Hi there. We want to introduce to you Meadows' litter of puppies. So Meadow and Cliff, last Tuesday, today is Saturday, last Tuesday, they had 8 puppies. So these pups are almost a week old. They're approaching their 1 week mark and they're growing good and doing great. And we want to introduce them to you. She had one girl, the pink little girl right here, and all the others, the other 7 are all boys. So some of their ribbon colors might not be the most masculine, but with a litter that was so heavy on the boy side, we were running out of boy color ribbons, so sorry about that. But this one right here in the pink is our little girl. So we'll go ahead and we'll start with her. We're just gonna grab her and let you see a close-up of her. They've grown so much, they're getting chunky, they're doing great. Starting to get some chub rolls on their noses. They're so cute. All right, so we're just going to introduce each pup to you individually and show you what their markings are and all of that kind of thing to help you, just get to have an introduction to each puppy. So we're just going to roll her over onto her back. And if we lift up her chin so that we can see, there's nothing in her throat area. Her chest is also solid with no markings. Her front paws are solid. And hold still, sweetheart. Her back paws are solid. So the little pink girl here is a solid Vizsla. Some Vizslas are solid without any white markings. Mom and dad of this litter, excuse me, mom and dad of this litter are both solid dogs. But even when you breed 2 solid Vizslas, you can get white markings in some of the pups. And that's because the breeds that were used to create the Vizsla, some of them have white markings. So anytime that dogs have been bred by people to have a certain characteristic or appearance or talent or whatever, that they're breeding a dog to achieve something that they're after, and then they continue to breed the ones that have those traits. That's how a breed is developed. But they have to mix several other breeds in the beginning, in developing that breed. So some of those breeds that were used to develop a Vizsla have markings. So, like I said, mom and dad are solid, but you can still have white markings on pups that come out of solid parents. Pink here is solid. She's going to sing for us. She wonders where her mom went. All right, excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. We'll move here to green since he's next in line. He's got some hair on his face. Yes, let's show them you. You are so cute. So here is our green boy. Their ears right now are really thick and almost waxy and really small. They're not in proportion to their face, according to what they've looked like as a grown dog. When they're born, you can see their eyes are shut. Their ears are also sealed shut. There's no opening in that ear canal at this point. About the same time that their eyes open, their ears will also open, and then they'll be able to hear and see, and the world becomes a whole new adventure for them at that point. And as they grow, these ears will thin out, become thinner and more pendulous, like you would expect from a grown Vizsla. All right, let's roll green over here and take a look at him. If we lift up, he doesn't want to relax his neck. Come on, lift your head up. There we go. Solid in the neck. Hold still, buddy. He might have just 1 or 2 hairs, white hairs right there on that calic. It's up for debate. There's a couple maybe. We'll see whether that stays as a marking or whether that is so faint that it fades away as he grows. We'll see. There's just the tiniest couple hairs right there. All right, if we look at his paws, we are solid on the front and solid on back, no white markings there. So green is probably going to be a solid pup. We'll just watch and see what happens with those, excuse me, with those just couple of hairs right there. While I've got green, let me just show you a couple of other things. Vizslas, when they're born, have a dew claw on their front paws. Some breeds have them on all 4. Vizslas are just on the front 2 paws. They're basically a thumb, and those are removed while they're very young. And that's what these scabs right here are. That's where their dew claws were removed. removed. So if you see those on the pups in the video that's showing up, that's all that is. The reason those are removed is because as a hunting and very active breed, as when they're grown and they're running through brush and stuff like that, they can actually snag it and rip it off, which is a much more traumatic injury than to just clean remove it. And it's done between 3 and 5 days of age before their nervous system is developed. Like we mentioned, they can't see, they can't hear. Their nervous system is still very much in a developmental stage, and so they don't have a whole lot of sensation at that young of an age, so that it's not a miserable experience for them. They get the most upset just being separated from mom, and as soon as they're back with mom, they don't seem to even notice that anything has happened. Their tails are also shortened at that same time. So let me show you on green if he'll relax so he can lift his tail out. There we go. So you take off the end third of a tail. So his tail used to be a little bit longer. You leave 2/3, take off the end third. And that is again for the same reason, to avoid injury. Vizsla tails are really quite long and really, really thin at the end, and they can actually break their tail just being rambunctious and active as a hunting dog. So that's why that's done. And again, that's done at the same time as the dew claws before they have that full sensation. All right, we're gonna try and keep track of who we've done, but sometimes they wiggle around. So you stay right there and we'll go to Blue next. Come here, Mr. Blue. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna wake you up. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. All right, let's roll him over. He's still half asleep. He might flop all around. Lift up his head. We look, there's nothing in the throat. He does have a definite white marking right here in the chest, and that is fine. That is within breed standard. So Vizslas are allowed to have the white on the chest or on the paws. So that is a within breed standard marking. If we look at his front paws, they're solid. If we look at his back paws, he has a little bit of a white highlight on these 2 toes of his back left paw. So he's got those 2 toes and then the marking on the chest. So he is a marked pup. Whether or not you want a marked pup or a solid pup is entirely a matter of preference. They are allowed to have those markings on the chest and the feet and still be within breed standard. If you plan to do conformation show, which is the prettiest dog contest, then they do show a tendency, or a preference I should say, towards solid dogs for show. So if you wanted to show, you would probably be wiser to lean towards a solid pup. But if you're not doing show, then it's really not an issue. It's just a matter of preference. And we actually quite often find that our marked pups, and even quite often our pups with the biggest markings, the most drastic markings, are the first ones selected. And I think that's because in a breed that tends to look so much alike, it gives some individuality. Your dog still has that very much Vizsla appearance, but a little bit of an individual characteristic that makes them stand out a little bit. So again, just a matter of preference. All right, let's see here. Orange is kind of on the top of the pile, so let's go with orange. Oh, and orange is actually the most marked pup of this litter. So we'll show you his markings in just a second. Let me get a good look at how darling he is. All right, let's roll him over and show you him. Now he has quite a bit of marking right up here in the throat. That marking is actually outside of breed standard. Like I said, mom and dad are both solid, but that's something that just shows up on occasion. His is the biggest for this litter, but we've seen, not in our dogs or our pups, but we've seen online pictures of Vizslas where they have a chest marking that goes, pretty much from the rib cage clear up through the throat, one huge solid white marking. So his isn't like that, but it's definitely there. And that marking is technically outside of breed standard. Now that's not going to be a big deal unless you plan to do that conformation show. He would be disqualified from that just because it's a cosmetic issue, but just because it's outside of breed standard. And if you plan to do any breeding, we also wouldn't suggest him for that. He's going to go strictly as a limited registration pup because he has that out of breed standard marking. But if he's just a member of the family, not a big deal. So anyway, let's continue looking at him. So that was his chest and neck. If we look at his paws, front are solid. On back, we have markings on the center 2 toes of both, he does not want to hold still, of both back paws. So definitely a marked pup for Mr. Orange here, most marked of the litter. Again, that's just your preference, whether that's something that you like the uniqueness of, or whether you prefer the solid. So there is our Mr. Orange. All right, Yellow's kind of on top of the stack, so we'll show you him next. Here is our Mr. Yellow, right here. Let's take a look at him. Oh, he's gonna sing for us. So Yellow again has a little bit in the throat. It's not as big as Orange, but there is a definite marking right there in his throat. He does not want me to make him hold still. He has, again, not quite as big as Orange, but again, definitely a marking right here in the chest as well. If we take a look, solid front paws, and just a tiny bit of highlight right around these toenails. I actually don't think that would even stay into adulthood, but there might be the tiniest bit right there. One more thing that I'll show you on Yellow, since he's so squirmy. I should do this on a different puppy. If you see these scabs, come on buddy, right here on their abdomen, that's their belly button. So when they're in the womb, just like a human baby, they've got an umbilical cord, you know, to feed them and keep them alive inside mama. It dries up, falls off, and that's just the little scab left from that. Dogs don't have an innie or outie belly button like people do. It just ends up smooth, but that's what that little scab on their tummy is that you're seeing. All right, let's go with Mr. Red next. Red is a little bit smaller than some of the other pups, but he's growing good. You know, he was smaller at birth. He's keeping up with himself. He's just a little bit smaller. We'll see if he stays that way. He also has a little bit darker coloring than some of the other pups as well. They're all pretty dark, but I think Red seems to be a little bit darker. Let's roll him over and take a look. If we can get him to raise up. He's solid in the throat, nothing on his neck. He's solid, hold still, solid in the chest, nothing there. If we take a look at front paws, those are solid. If we take a look at back paws, he might have a hair or two around that toenail. I'm not even sure. I doubt that will stay. If it is, it's so hard to even tell. I bet that will go away, so most likely he's going to be a solid pup. One other thing I can show you on them, these stitches in the end of their tail from their tails being docked, those don't have to be taken out. Just as the scab, as it heals up and the scab comes off, the stitch will come off with it. So there is our little Red guy. All right, next we'll do Mr. Blue here. Actually, it's black. I'm trying to decide, is this navy blue or black? I think it's black. It's hard to tell in this lighting. Let's say it's black. He's another squirmy one. And let's take a look at him. Come on, mister, head up. He has the tiniest bit in his throat. It might not even stay. There's a few hairs right there, but it's not a definite marking like his brother's. It's just a few hairs. So we'll see what comes of that as he grows. We look at his chest. Again, there's maybe 2 hairs, very faint. I wouldn't be surprised if that goes away. If we take a look at front paws, they are solid. Back paws are certainly marked on this little guy. They're not a real drastic marking, but we do definitely have a highlight right around those toenails and right around this one toenail here. So he's going to be mostly solid with just a highlight on those back toenails. Those are really common markings on Beachless, to have them around the toenails like that. And when they're just a highlight, they actually by adulthood usually aren't, you usually can't tell that they're marked on those toenails by the time they grow up. So I would think at adulthood he would appear to be a solid pup, even though he's got those markings there on his toes. All right, And we've already done red, so I think bright green here. Red wiggled into the wrong stack. I think bright green here is our last one. He again is a little bit smaller, more like red in size. But unlike red, red seems to be darker than the rest of the litter by just a hair. Bright green is a little bit more blonde. That's again just a matter of preference. There's not a right or wrong. Vizslas can range anything from strawberry blonde to a really deep rust. Any of those colors are fine and are breed standard as long as there is some of that reddish hue to them. So not a right or wrong. He just is going to be a little bit lighter than his litter mates. If we roll him over and take a look at him. Chin up, buddy. He's solid in the throat. He has a marking on his chest. If you hold still. It's not real drastic, but there are a few white hairs right there. And then his chest is more just blonde, but there are a few white hairs right there on his chest. If we look at front paws, those are solid. Oh, you'll go make Mama upset if you cry. And back paws, maybe a tiny highlight around a couple toenails. I don't think that will stay. So he's a little bit marked, those few hairs right there. I wouldn't be surprised if that goes away. Very lightly marked for this little guy. Again, he's a little bit smaller and a little bit more blonde in coloring than the rest of his litter mates. So these pups are just growing great. Like I said, Mom and Dad are both solid Vizslas. Some of their characteristics, Mom is quite petite. Meadow is very small for a Vizsla. She's on the small end. Dad is more middle range. He's not the biggest, he's not the smallest, he's kind of average in size. As far as personalities, both have great personalities. Mom is a little bit more calm and easygoing, more on for a Vizsla. She's a little on the calmer side for a Vizsla, and Dad is a little bit more energetic. So we could see a range of traits in these pups. Mom is very strong on fetch and retrieve and that kind of thing, and Dad has a lot of bird drive in him. So, we could just see a lot of variety in the traits of these pups, but they're all growing well, doing great, healthy, beautiful little pups, and we're excited for them to become new additions and great additions to your home and family. This twitching you see them doing in their sleep, some people might panic. That's actually a good sign. It's very normal. If pups don't twitch occasionally like that, then that's actually a concern. So as you see them twitch, like Red just did it, Black did it right there, that's very, very normal behavior when they're asleep. Nothing to be concerned about.